TechBusters proudly brought to you by Ericsson.
Good evening and welcome to TechBusters, where we cover and reflect on the technology revolution that's happening all around us. And indeed it is a revolution because technology is moving so fast. You often hear about the digital tsunami. Well, you've come to the right show. This is TechBusters. We reflect the revolution. Mr. Shapshak.
You had me at revolution.
Viva Toby Shapshak, viva! No, actually not viva. There's nothing to viva you about.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you for joining us. You can join in the conversation by using the hashtag TechBusters or by following at TechBustersSA. But before we do anything, let's take a look at what's coming up tonight.
Tonight on TechBusters, Aki jets off to Las Vegas for EMC Worlds 2016. We also chat to Stephanie Cowper, founder of the BESPECULAR app, which assists the visually impaired in their everyday activities. It's technology for the greater good, tonight on TechBusters.
So the largest single optical telescope in the southern hemisphere has given tourism and infrastructure development in the town of Sutherland a real boost. You know that place that gets really cold in winter? Sutherland, yeah? Well, built at a cost of approximately 300 million and running on an annual budget of some 30 million rand, the Southern African Large Telescope, also known as SALT, has led to a rise in tourist numbers as well as guest houses in Sutherland. Minister of Science and Technology Naledi Pandor said the telescope, which was built in 2005 by the way and fully operational since 2011, has made a huge contribution to the town's economy. Another example of technology becoming a tourist attraction, and I must say that is one place in Southern Africa that is on my bucket list, to go to Sutherland, because I always see that observatory, that telescope, and I want to go there. Have you been to Sutherland? Because the only time I get to see Sutherland is it's like the first place that snows, and I just know it's very cold.
Exactly.
And they've got that gorgeous observatory, but it's one of my places of
I would love to go there. I mean, it really is like one of those places, like they used to say in the Wild West, turn left 2 weeks after the Indians.
Yeah.
And it is in the middle of nowhere. And that's the point, because there's very little light contamination so that the telescope can work. But I mean, up until the telescope was built, it was notable for being one of the coldest places in the country.
Well, I've got good news for you. We've pulled together the entire team at TechBusters, the camera crew, the producers and everybody, and we have given you a 1 month accommodation, free stay in Sutherland for the month of July. Extendable by another 4 weeks if you like. Can you imagine spending 4 weeks in Sutherland? So technology has made some steps in helping the visually impaired conduct tasks that were previously impossible for them to accomplish alone. But there are still times during the day when a visually impaired individual really needs a pair of eyes to help them accomplish their task, be it big or small, whether it's to count money, whether it's to check clothing stains, or even read expiration dates on food packages, for example. This is where a brand new app, it's called BESPECULAR, has come into play. It's an app specifically designed to help visually impaired people identify objects or situations they encounter on a daily basis with a personalized touch. Our team recently visited the SA Council for the Blind in Pretoria to chat to the developer of the app, Stephanie Cowper, and find out just how this works. Take a look at this. It's mind-blowing.
Take a picture, hold still. BESPECULAR, heading.
Could you please tell me the color of the shirt and whether it is suitable for a TV shoot? Thank you very much in advance. Bye.
Play reply.
Hi, this is a royal blue shirt and it looks formal, so I guess it could be suitable for a TV shoot.
BESPECULAR was an idea that started when my business partner and I were studying in the US. We did a course at Stanford and which taught us how to start our own technology company. And both of us have a passion for technology and for helping the community. And we really wanted to make sure that we combined both of them. We noticed that there are 1 billion disabled people in the world, and the greatest group of disabled people are those who are visually impaired. And really there are other products on the market, but what really makes us different is the human element and the personalization. So let me just explain how BESPECULAR works. There are two communities, the visually impaired community and the sighted community, and we are in essence enabling visually impaired people to see through the eyes of our sighted volunteers and ultimately lets them lead more independent lives. We are equipping both teams, both communities with the app, and a visually impaired person would be able to take a picture or upload a picture from their gallery on their phone and then be able to ask questions. So it could be contextual, so how Albert took a photo of his shirt asking, is this okay for my film interview today? Or it could be asking for more detail, like asking the expiration date or even instructions on like a ready-made meal. He would then send out his question and we then route it to our sighted community of volunteers. And you would then get a little notification on your smartphone saying, Albert needs to see through your eyes. And you're able to then open it, zoom in, go through if there are multiple photos and reply. And you can reply either by text or by voice note. And then Albert is able to receive your reply within a matter of seconds. What's so great is afterwards, Albert is able to listen to not only the first reply, but if he feels that the reply wasn't good enough, that it didn't completely answer his question, he can listen to the next incoming reply until he really feels like, okay, I'm satisfied now. And what Albert is then able to do is rate the helpfulness, because we need to make sure that that BESPECULAR is quick, simple and fast, and to really make sure that the quality is always of the best, because we are using humans, so there is potential for human error. And that's when rating the helpfulness really comes through. So the sighted people are anyone who happens to have a smartphone. We've developed the app on Android and on iOS. And you download the app, you create a little profile for yourself, and you then say, okay, I'm ready to receive push notifications. It's completely voluntary, and what we've tried to make sure is that it's not invasive. You could get a notification when you're sitting in a meeting, and you know that, okay, it's been routed to enough people that hopefully someone else will reply, and I'm just not going to be able to get this one. Or even you get a question, you say, you know what, I don't really know much about fashion, so I'm actually just going to press skip and not reply to Albert's question, in the hopes or knowing that actually that someone else will reply to Albert's question saying, yes, that's a blue shirt and it's good for your filming today. So at the moment we're busy running our worldwide beta test. And we have over 600 people testing the app in English-speaking countries. So that includes America, the UK, South Africa and Australia. We then also have people in Italy at the moment testing the app in Italian. So this has also been another important function for us, is to be able to operate in not only English but other languages. So in Italy alone we have over 600 people just using the app there. And the beta test has been important because we wanted to make sure that there was a quality app to be launched. And when we do launch, that'll be in July, and we'll be launching at the American Council of the Blind's annual conference. And we're hoping to go all out, have lots of specials with the app, and getting people to unite on both the sighted and the visually impaired side. Our goal at the moment is to fulfill the two markets, so developing countries and developed countries. So in South Africa, my goal would really be to get our almost 1 million visually impaired people to have access to the app. It's really difficult here in terms of cost constraints. Not only would you need a smartphone, but you would need data, and you would have to have really good access to good signal. So there are more constraints here, but I'm very passionate about having people in our country use the app. So we'll be trying to get partnerships with either a telco company or with Apple themselves to ensure that South Africans are equipped with this type of app. And then worldwide, we would like to see it in more languages. So having the app in text-to-speech is fantastic. We would love to partner with larger companies and say, well, your employees can do good by using our app. So it could be part of your CSR program, even a points program, like a Vitality, for instance. Like you could get points by using the BESPECULAR app.
The Fastest I've ever taken a car is 140, 145 miles an hour. But today, 200 miles an hour on the Jaguar F-Type SVR. This is gonna be exciting. I hope I stay on the ground.
Road is locked. Three, two, one.
That's 165 miles an hour. That's 170. That's 180. $192. 199.
200 miles an hour, baby. 201?
201.
Yay! Fastest I've ever gone in my life. Dude, you have no idea. That was so sick. Insane, man. It's beautiful, man. It rides real smooth. So good.
Aki has recently returned from Las Vegas, where he's been an extra on the new Ocean's 14 film. Actually, no.
No, not quite. Not quite. But you could describe it as
you
that
were
in
a
Las Vegas.
stunt body double for George Clooney. Can you confirm that?
Yes, yes. But they had to make my hair a lot more grayer for that particular role. But anyway, the actual truth is that I was in Las Vegas for EMC World 2016. And I must say, it was an absolutely fascinating conference, Toby, and we're going to touch on this. But, underpinned by this massive deal that's going on at the moment. Dell buying EMC for $67 billion. It's a massive deal, but we really got the sense at this conference where it was EMC World and it was about EMC, how this digital platform, these digital databases, the storage that's happening, and the call for business to modernize and understand that there is massive change coming, and are you adapting fast enough? So here's a snippet of what I saw in Las Vegas, and this is all the way from EMC World 2016. Greetings and welcome to Las Vegas, and this is EMC World 2016. And EMC Corporation basically is a global leader in enabling businesses and service providers to transform their operations and deliver IT as a service. Something which is fundamental to this transition is cloud computing and storage, of course. And this is what this conference is all about. The IT industry, interestingly enough, is valued at more than $3 trillion globally. And today, companies are looking at modernizing their IT infrastructure and really making their organizations more agile and cost-effective using the cloud infrastructure in the background. And this is the big difference in business today. So it's all about security today. I mean, as we move to the cloud, as businesses rely on the cloud for analytics and all sorts of other things, security is the big concern for vendors and for everybody in this world today, right?
Indeed. Well, especially given the kind of attacks we're seeing, the effect of breaches, for example, the recent breaches, a major shutdown of power in the Ukraine, for example, the breaches at major insurance companies like Anthem. So it's clear that there can be major economic impact from these kind of attacks. And so companies have to be thinking about, well, how do we defend ourselves? How do we respond to these attacks? And how do we find them? If we're under attack, how do we know that that's the case?
So how do companies defend themselves? Because you've got these hackers, you've got people out there that want this data, you have these data breaches. There was even a hospital the other day that paid these hackers, I think $20,000 to, release the records and decrypt them again. How do people protect themselves?
Well, I think you have to start at a strategic level. You have to think about what you care about in your organization. and what you can do to protect those things. In many cases, there are defensive mechanisms you can put in place. For example, here at EMC, we actually have mechanisms that can help with that ransom case, in which you isolate data to help make sure that if someone does encrypt it, you can get back to the original data without having to pay the ransom.
How do analytics help in detecting these security breaches?
Well, two things. One is exactly that predictive role. That is, you look at what's going on in your organization, in the industry, in order to say, will I be under attack? Do I have things people care about that they're going to want to either use as ransomware or else as actually pulling the information out of my environment? And you can have a pretty good idea beforehand of whether you are going to be attacked, and if so, how you might be attacked. The second part is you also need to keep a very watchful eye on what's going on in your organization so you know if you are being attacked or not. And then if you are, for what reason, by whom, and for what purpose.
I mean, how do you set about defining these kind of parameters to be able to get this kind of analysis? Because that's very interesting. It's almost like behavioral signs that you need to predetermine within your big data analytics, right?
It's a very good analogy. In fact, behavioral analytics is a very big piece of what you look at. You might look, for example, at exactly how users normally work with a banking application, for example. When we log in, we normally look at our account balances first, but an attacker will jump right to the funds transfer. And so you can look at these kind of behaviors. You can look at the network level to say, is this what normally happens in my environment? You can look at the computer behavior and say, is what this server is doing, is that normal behavior for this server? So there's lots of that behavioral analytics. That's exactly what you do in order to detect attacks.
On average, your average enterprise, how secure would you say they actually are?
Well, we actually did a survey of major organizations worldwide in which we asked them their own sense of how secure they were. And by far the majority said they didn't feel that they were safe. They didn't feel that they had a good handle on their own security. So at the moment, I think the perception in the industry is that there's a long way for us to go in terms of actually achieving the kind of security that we're after.
The message to business is transform, modernize, become more agile. You need to save costs or you will be left behind. Okay, I'm going to hold this real tight. I'm a bit nervous. And we are about to go. Yeah! Oi, oi, oi. Okay, Leron, go the other way. Yeah! Yes, please. Thank you to Leron Segev for, rolling the camera there for me, but that was a pretty insane experience. Nothing to do with tech, but wow, that was cool. So if you're wondering about big data and your storage, when you do things in the cloud, when you search on your computer, we're on Facebook, for example, where you're wondering where your email is being stored, it's happening right here in the background. These are these massive server rooms that we talk about where everything is being stored, everything is being processed in the background, and this is ultimately what the cloud is about. These machines in the background where you can hear that like eerie noise, they're working hard, consuming a lot of power. But this is what happens in the background when we talk about the cloud. These are the servers doing all the hard work for your computing to be easier. Well, you may remember last year, TechBusters attended the Panasonic relaunch back in South Africa, and this is one of the great Japanese companies, and it's so good to have them back in the country because they've got some really clever technology.
We're using a factory in Johannesburg that currently has no work. They used to manufacture for Philips and Samsung. We're using them. But it's not just the 12 TVs. We're considering many other products. We've had negotiations with some of the appliance manufacturers because naturally when you supplying and importing refrigerators, there's a lot of empty space in the container. So to get to the masses, we need locally produced product, and there's ongoing negotiations currently with 2 suppliers. Prior to 2009, there was an agent in South Africa. The company is called Roynet, and Japan didn't focus on South Africa at that time, and with Mr. Ito that's joined, he saw the possibilities, and in last year, 2015, they decided to invest in South Africa. We started keeping stock in South Africa. So from an employment point of view, we don't have our own warehouses, but we have 2 outsourced warehouses that employ more people to do that. So the difference now is we carry stock in South Africa, we invoice in South Africa, and we deliver it directly to the dealers, so the lead times are much shorter. We have more than 100 small showrooms within the dealers, and we're expanding that, and actually our distribution has increased. We've got more than 2,500 outlets. There's some of them that we're still in negotiation with, because naturally the rebate arrangements, etc., are quite difficult. Also, the exchange rate has affected us negatively, but it's started improving again. So, but some of the negotiation is based on product availability. So they want one range. They don't want us to introduce product haphazardly now, 3 months later, 4 months later. So some of those we have to wait until we've got a full range of appliances, etc., before we can be back with it. Panasonic has a very unique way of looking at an exchange rate. So for 18 months we didn't increase the exchange rate. We've increased it now, and naturally with it improving, we're considering reducing. But when the exchange rate gets worse, we negotiate with the factories to try and minimize that effect on the consumer. It's not always possible, but we try and manage that.
Okay, well, I've been playing mainly with the GH4, which is a mirrorless DSLR camera. It shoots 4K video on board. It's got a thing called 4K photo, where you can extract actual photos out of your 4K, which gives a usable, printable photo of about an A3. It's a great feature because it's shooting at 30 frames per second. So shooting at 30 frames per second, if you shoot for 2 seconds, you're getting 60 images, which you can choose from. Other than that, it's a great DSLR camera in terms of normal stills photography. So it's an all-round camera. There's nothing that I haven't been able to do with this camera. As a full-time photographer, it works well for me. I don't need anything more than this. If I was a dedicated sports photographer, maybe it wouldn't be up to scratch because of the focusing speeds, but mirrorless is slightly behind on traditional DSLRs and focusing speeds, and that's fast focusing speeds. Generally, for the man in the street and for everyone else, it's fine. Well, there's no other competitor that can shoot 4K photo. So it's a leader in its field in terms of that. 4K, traditional 4K video is 4 times the resolution of HD TV that you're seeing. So we're getting 4 times the amount of that resolution. And to pull a photograph from that, you're getting a clear 8 megapixel still photograph out of that.
This week I've been playing around with the very latest Huawei phablet. This is the Mate 8, and it's a very interesting one. It uses their own Kirin 950 processor, the chipset on board. But what's impressive about this device, if you look at the back of the device, they've improved on the fingerprint sensor, which sits right over here. And I must say, it is pretty accurate, the fingerprint sensor. So in terms of the previous, the Mate 7, if you were used to it, you'll notice this one's got a lot more rounded edges. It's an all metal design. It's got a better screen. It's got a better camera, 16 megapixel camera. The battery, in fact, was pretty impressive. You know, I played with this the whole day. I did video, I did web surfing. And by the time I finished throughout that day, I still had 10% battery life, and I really pushed it on this phone. So this is a great phone, and I'll tell you why it's a great phone. The price is great. So the competitors on this phone would be the Samsung Galaxy Note 5, and it would be the iPhone 6 Plus. So it kind of fits into that category. This one here is about 13 grand. You get a dual SIM phone. The one, obviously, slot can be used for an SD card as well. Here's a company that's #1 in China, and their quality is improving every single model. Let me give you an example of the camera. I'm going to take a picture of the crew as we... can I have you guys smiling, please? Thank you very much. There we go. All right, there you give you an idea of the quality of the phone. And remember, this is a pretty dark room. If we can get the camera to zoom in here. And the selfie mode actually is also pretty good. It might crack. There's no guarantees that this might stay open, but let's have a look. And it's even got beauty mode, so it even makes me look better, which is very unusual, I must tell you. But let's have a look at the beauty mode. I'm setting it on -10, so it irons out all my wrinkles and the stuff that you can't see on the camera. But 3, look at that. Look at this gorgeous hunk over here. Hey? Yeah, that's not going to quite be my selfie picture, but that's the Huawei Mate 8 device. And if you're looking for a really good, solid Android device that runs the latest version of Android with all the bells and whistles, the screen itself is not quite a 4K screen, but it's just below 4K. It's good enough. But for the price, at 13,000 Rand, I think it's really good value for money.
Well, there you go. You've suffered through half an hour of Aki Anastasio, so give yourself a big round of applause. Thanks for joining us on Tech Busters.
What a lovely colleague, so complimentary every single time. We'd love to hear your comments, except the ones from Toby to me, because you don't want to read those comments. But you can email the show. We're techbusters@abn360.com. You can tweet us on the show, TechBustersSA. And again, let me remind you, tell us about those internet speeds where you are on the African continent. Tell us where you are, the city, the town. Tell us how fast your internet connectivity is. I'm at Aki Anastasio on Twitter. He's at Shap Shack. Thanks for joining us tonight.